When I walked into our bedroom, their whispers died instantly. My wife and my best friend froze in the shadows, not expecting me home so early. Their guilty expressions told me everything I needed to know before a single word was spoken. "Chris, you're home," Emily stammered, her fingers nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She was wearing that red dress, the one I hadn't seen in months. Ryan stood up too quickly, bumping the nightstand. "Hey man, just stopped by to talk about Friday's party." I felt my heart pound against my ribs but kept my face neutral. Funny place for a conversation. The tension in the room was suffocating. 3 days earlier, Ryan had called me with an unusual seriousness in his voice, stripped of his typical dramatic flair. "Chris, you need to come to this party tonight," he had said, his tone almost unrecognizable. I'd hesitated. Things with Emily had been strained for months, not fighting, just distance growing between us like an invisible wall. When I mentioned the party to her, she lit up in a way I hadn't seen in ages, immediately reaching for that red dress in the back of her closet. At the party, everyone seemed to share a secret I wasn't privy to. Ryan's greeting had been particularly odd, his gaze lingering too long on my wife. "Emily, you look, wow, I almost didn't recognize you," he'd said, eyes flicking between us. The night had become a blur of faces and forced smiles. Emily floated from group to group, laughing more genuinely than she had at home in months. I watched her lean close to a stranger in a leather jacket, his lips brushing her ear as she smiled at whatever he whispered. Now, standing in our bedroom doorway looking at these two people I thought I knew, I realized I'd been right all along. The betrayal had just begun to unfold. I couldn't shake the image of Emily standing too close to that stranger at the party. The way she tilted her head back when she laughed at his whispers, her body angled toward him like a flower seeking sunlight. An hour into the party, Emily disappeared. I searched downstairs, asked a few acquaintances if they'd seen her, then headed upstairs. That's when I heard it, her unmistakable laugh, soft and intimate, behind a closed door. My hand hovered over the doorknob. Something stopped me from turning it. Instead, I retreated downstairs and found Ryan leaning against the kitchen counter, nursing a drink. "Where's Emily?" I asked, watching his face carefully. "Don't know, around somewhere, I guess." "Why?" His tone was too casual, his eyes not quite meeting mine. "Thought I heard her upstairs," I pressed. Ryan's smile tightened. "Relax, man. She probably just stepped out for some air." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. When Emily finally reappeared, her cheeks were flushed, her hair slightly disheveled. She slipped her arm through mine with practiced ease. "Sorry I disappeared," she said. "Lost track of time." The drive home was thick with tension. Emily fell asleep almost immediately in the passenger seat, or pretended to. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, stealing glances at her peaceful face. How could she sleep so soundly while my mind screamed with suspicion? I parked in our driveway but didn't wake her right away. In the blue glow of the dashboard lights, I studied my wife's face. 5 years of marriage, and suddenly she felt like a stranger. The woman who once told me everything now had secrets written in the corners of her smile. The betrayal wasn't just about what might have happened upstairs. It was about the moment trust began to crumble, when certainty gave way to doubt. And I knew with sickening clarity that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Emily hummed in the kitchen as if nothing had happened. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the highlights in her hair as she poured coffee. "Last night was fun, wasn't it?" she asked, sliding a mug toward me. Her smile seemed genuine, which somehow made everything worse. "Was it?" I replied, watching her face for any flicker of guilt. She shrugged and turned away. "I thought so." I spent the day trapped in thought spirals, replaying every moment from the party, analyzing every interaction between Emily and Ryan over the past months. Had I missed the signs? How long had this been going on? That evening, while Emily showered, I made my move. Her phone lay on the coffee table, face down. I picked it up, pressed the home button. Locked. I tried her usual password, her birthday. Nothing. Our anniversary date. Nothing again. The password had been changed. The bathroom door opened and I quickly set the phone down. "Shower's all yours," Emily called, wrapped in a towel. Later, while she slept, I crept to her laptop in the living room. Her email revealed nothing suspicious, nor did her social media accounts. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen. WhatsApp message from KL. "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again." My stomach dropped. I clicked on the notification, but it required a login. Emily wasn't signed into WhatsApp on her laptop. Who was KL? The man from the party? A colleague? A code name for Ryan? I closed the laptop and stared into the darkness of our living room. The home we'd built together suddenly felt like foreign territory. The woman sleeping in our bed, a stranger harboring secrets. I needed proof, something concrete I could confront her with. Because right now, all I had were whispers, suspicions, and a growing certainty that my marriage was built on quicksand. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would start testing my suspicions. Over breakfast, I studied Emily's face as she scrolled through her phone. The morning light caught the edge of her jaw, softening the woman who had become a mystery to me. "Remember that guy you were talking to at the party?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Tall, dark hair, leather jacket?" She blinked rapidly, like someone waking from a daydream. "Oh yeah, I think so. Why?" "He seemed friendly," I shrugged, spooning cereal into my mouth. "Oh, stop. He was just making conversation." Her laugh came too quickly, too high. I nodded, letting silence settle between us. Emily returned to her phone, but I noticed how her shoulders remained tense, how her eyes darted up to check my expression when she thought I wasn't looking. That evening, as we sat in the living room pretending to enjoy each other's company, I caught her smiling at her phone, her fingers typing rapidly. "Who's that?" I asked. "Oh, just Sarah," she replied without looking up. "She wants me to cover her yoga class tomorrow." The lie fell so smoothly from her lips that I almost believed her. Almost. When she went to bed, I texted Ryan, "We need to talk." "No. Who's KL?" His response came minutes later, not over text. "Come by tomorrow." I sat in our darkened living room, the blue glow of my phone illuminating my hands. The hands that had held Emily's on our wedding day. The hands that had built this home with her. The hands that now shook with rage and grief. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay beside my wife, listening to her steady breathing, wondering how she could sleep so peacefully while dismantling our life together. In the morning, I kissed her goodbye as usual. She tasted like toothpaste and deceit. "Working late tonight," I told her. "Okay," she smiled. "I might go to yoga after work." I nodded, knowing that yoga was now code for something else entirely. Something, or someone, named KL. I drove to Ryan's apartment after work, my nerves frayed to breaking point. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and red, colors too beautiful for the ugliness I was about to confront. When Ryan opened the door, his face was somber. I hadn't seen that expression since our father's funeral 3 years ago. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. His apartment was unnaturally tidy, as if he'd prepared for this moment. We sat across from each other at his kitchen table, two brothers about to shatter what remained of their shared history. "Listen," Ryan began, rubbing his palms against his jeans. "I didn't know how to tell you. I've been sitting on this for weeks and it's been eating me alive. Just tell me what's going on," I demanded, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Ryan picked up his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then slid it across the table. "I'm sorry, Chris." The video showed Emily on this very couch, laughing, her hand resting on the thigh of a man I didn't recognize. The timestamp read 2 weeks ago. "I threw that party to show you," Ryan admitted. "I thought if you saw her flirting with other guys." "I don't know, I thought maybe you'd notice something was wrong." My throat tightened. "Who is he?" "His name is Kyle. He teaches at Emily's yoga studio." Ryan couldn't meet my eyes. They'd been seeing each other for a while. "How long is a while?" The words scraped my throat. 3 months, maybe 4. Ryan's voice dropped. "She brings him to your house sometimes when you're at work." The room spun around me. My brother, the boy who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stood beside me at my wedding, had just confirmed my worst fears. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Would you have believed me?" Ryan countered. "Or would you have thought I was trying to ruin your marriage?" He was right. I wouldn't have believed him. Not without seeing it for myself. I returned home to find Emily curled on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She looked up with a practiced smile that once would have warmed me. Now it only revealed how skilled she'd become at deception. "Hey," she said. "How was work?" I considered confronting her right then, letting the rage and hurt spill out across our living room floor. But something cold and calculated had taken root inside me. I wanted more than suspicions and secondhand evidence. I wanted undeniable proof. "Fine," I replied, hanging my jacket. "Might have to work late tomorrow too." Her eyes flickered with what might have been relief. "That's okay. I understand." "I'm sure you do," I thought. The next morning, I went through the motions of leaving for work, kissing her goodbye, grabbing my travel mug, checking my wallet. But instead of starting the car, I watched her through the kitchen window. The moment she turned away, I slipped back inside and took her phone from the counter where she'd left it. In the bathroom, I tried Ryan's birthday as the passcode, 6 digits I'd memorized decades ago but never thought I'd use for this. The screen unlocked. My hands trembled as I opened WhatsApp and found KL at the top of her conversations. Ka. The evidence unfolded in painful detail, not just an affair but a months-long relationship built on lies and mockery. Photos of Emily in that same red dress from the party. Intimate messages. Plans. He suspects something. Emily, don't worry about him, just play your part, Kyle. I scrolled further, finding tomorrow's arrangement. He's working late tomorrow, come over after. Emily, can't wait, Kyle. I took screenshots, sending them to my own phone before carefully replacing hers. When I heard her footsteps, I flushed the toilet and washed my hands, schooling my expression. Forgot my charger, I explained, brushing past her with a quick smile. She bought it completely. Just as I had bought her lies for months. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow everything would end. The next morning, I performed my role flawlessly. Kissed Emily goodbye, complained about the upcoming late shift, promised to text when I was on my way home. The casual lies we both told hung in the air between us, invisible yet suffocating. Instead of driving to work, I parked a block away from our house. The morning stretched endlessly as I waited in my car, checking the time every few minutes, rehearsing what I would say when I finally confronted them. At 11:45, Emily emerged from our front door, yoga mat tucked under her arm. I sank lower in my seat as she passed. No class today, I knew. Just an alibi. 30 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up to our curb. Kyle stepped out, sunglasses perched on his nose despite the overcast day. He walked up to our door, my door, with the confidence of a man who'd done this many times before. My home. My wife. My life. He'd been stealing pieces of me for months. I gave them 5 minutes before I approached, my phone set to record in my pocket. The key turned silently in the lock. I stepped into the house I'd bought for us 3 years ago, the home where we'd once talked about raising children. Their voices drifted from the living room. So when's your next business trip? Kyle asked, his tone mockingly casual. Emily laughed, that genuine laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Next week. He never suspects a thing. Honestly, it's almost too easy. Does he ever suspect anything? Kyle's voice was curious, almost concerned. Please, Emily scoffed. Chris wouldn't see this if it hit him in the face. Each word was a knife, precise and cutting. I'd suspected betrayal, but the casual cruelty of their conversation sliced deeper than I'd anticipated. I took a deep breath, steadied myself against the wall, and stepped into the living room doorway. Why don't you try me? I said, my voice unnaturally calm. Emily jumped up from the couch, her face draining of color. Kyle froze mid-gesture, a deer caught in headlights. The moment of truth had arrived. Chris. Emily stammered, her face a portrait of shock. You're supposed to be at work. And you're supposed to be at yoga, I replied, my voice eerily steady despite the earthquake inside me. Nice to finally meet you, Kyle. Kyle stood up, smoothing his shirt as if composure could be restored with a simple gesture. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in our living room. Really? That's what you're going with? I pulled out my phone and played back their conversation. Emily's dismissive words, Kyle's amused responses. Their voices filled the room like ghosts. Emily's face paled as she heard herself speak. Chris, please, I can explain. There's nothing to explain, I cut her off. I've seen the messages. I know this has been going on for months. I know you bring him here when I'm at work. Kyle edged toward the door. I should go. Yes, you should, I agreed, ice in my veins. And don't come back. He hesitated, glancing at Emily as if waiting for her to defend him, to choose him. When she remained frozen, he bolted past me without another word. The front door slammed, leaving Emily and me in a silence heavy with the weight of her betrayal. I'm done, I said simply. I'll pack my things or you can pack yours. I don't care which. Emily crumpled onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. Chris, please. Was a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill, Emily. This, I gestured around the room where they'd been lounging minutes before. This was a choice. A series of choices. Every text, every lie, every time you brought him into our home. Her tears held no power over me now. The woman I thought I'd known, the woman I'd promised forever to, was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I turned and walked out the door, leaving Emily sobbing on our couch. The rage and betrayal carried me to my car. As I drove away, a strange sense of lightness mingled with the pain. For the first time in months, I wasn't living a lie. I checked into a hotel that night, my belongings hastily stuffed into a duffel bag. Sleep evaded me as my phone lit up with Emily's calls and messages, each notification a fresh wound. Around midnight I finally answered. "Chris, please," her voice cracked. "We need to talk. I think we've said everything there is to say." "I made a terrible mistake," she sobbed. "But that doesn't mean I stopped loving you." I stared at the ceiling, her words washing over me without effect. "You don't mock someone you love, Emily." The next morning, I met with a lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman who listened to my story without judgment. Divorce papers were filed by noon. I felt numb as I signed my name, watching my marriage dissolve into legal jargon. Emily's attempts at reconciliation grew increasingly desperate. Flowers appeared at my office. Voicemails filled my inbox. "We could go to counseling," she suggested when I reluctantly agreed to meet for coffee. Plenty of couples work through affairs. Her use of the plural, affairs, struck me like a physical blow. How many were there, Emily? Her silence answered more clearly than words ever could. Later that week, while collecting more clothes from our house, I found Emily's journal buried under sweaters in her drawer. I shouldn't have opened it, but some masochistic instinct drove me to read. "I feel so alive when I'm with Kyle," she'd written 3 months earlier. "With Chris, everything is so predictable, so safe. Kyle makes me feel like I'm someone else, someone exciting." Our final conversation happened in a park, neutral territory away from the memories of our shared home. "You didn't betray me because of anything I did," I told her, autumn leaves crunching beneath my feet. "You betrayed me because of who you are, Emily. You're selfish, a liar, and you don't care about anyone but yourself." She flinched at each word, but I felt no satisfaction. Just emptiness where love had once lived. "The papers are with your lawyer," I said, standing to leave. "Sign them." 6 weeks later, the finalized divorce papers arrived in a manila envelope. I opened them at my kitchen table, a new table in a new apartment across town. Emily's signature flowed across the bottom line, finalizing the end of 5 years together. My phone buzzed with a text. "I signed them. I hope someday you'll find it in your heart to forgive me. I'll always love you." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I packed a small bag and loaded it into my car. Ryan had suggested this road trip weeks ago. Just drive, clear your head, figure out who you are without her. Today felt right. As I headed out of town, I rolled down the windows despite the November chill. The cold air rushed in, cleansing and sharp. The highway stretched before me, a blank page waiting to be filled. For weeks I'd been going through the motions: work, sleep, exist. The betrayal had hollowed me out, leaving an empty shell where a husband once stood. But today something felt different. The weight on my chest had lightened, just enough to take a full breath for the first time in months. I thought about calling Ryan, telling him I was taking his advice, but decided against it. This journey was mine alone. At the city limits, I turned onto the open highway. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the asphalt, and the radio played songs I hadn't heard in years. I sang along, my voice rusty but growing stronger with each mile. The future was uncertain, a vast, unmapped territory. But it was mine again. No more lies, no more pretending, no more Emily and Kyle whispering behind my back. As I merged onto the interstate, leaving the ghosts of my marriage far behind, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. Not happiness, not yet. But a quiet certainty that happiness would come again someday. The road stretched endlessly ahead, and for the first time in months, I looked forward to seeing where it might lead.